The same phenomenon appears in impersonal things. The charm and perfection of certain poems consists in the fact that the individual words have no independent meaning, they serve the dominant emotion or the artistic purpose of the whole, and all the varied associations that make up the full meaning of the word are excluded, except for those that bear upon the central theme of the poem. The whole poem is artistically more perfect to the extent that its individual elements lose their meaning. Finally, a more trivial example, the costs of production and the aesthetic value of a mosaic are higher the smaller are the single pieces. The colors of the whole are most striking and most subtle when the single piece occupies a small area and is in itself insignificant. In the sphere of valuation, it is not at all unusual for the values of the whole and the parts to develop in inverse ratio. This is not fortuitous, but expresses a causal connection. The fact that a given quantity of money is less valuable today than it was centuries ago is a direct precondition for the enormously increased significance of money in general. This condition itself in turn depends upon the increase in the functional as against the material value of money. It is apparent not only in the case of money in general, but also in various derivative phenomena. For example, the rate of interest was extremely high so long as there were few interest-bearing loans, as a result of the Church's doctrine of usury and the general conditions of a barter economy. The rate of interest declined steadily with the growing importance of interest in economic life. From a theoretical standpoint, it would be a profound mistake to regard the change from substance to function as a process in which money becomes valueless, as though it were similar to depriving a man of his soul. This view misses the main point, namely that the functions into which money is dissolved are valuable in themselves, and that the value that money acquires is a supplementary value in the case of metallic money but the sole value in the case of token money. It is unquestionably a real value, like that of the locomotive whose value in providing transportation exceeds the value of the material from which it is constructed. It is true that money is able to function initially because it has intrinsic value, but subsequently it becomes valuable because it exercises these functions. To equate the value of money with the value of its material is like equating the value of a locomotive with the weight of iron that it contains plus the value of the labor employed in its construction. It may appear that this comparison does in fact disprove the assumption that there is a specific value originating from the function. The price of a locomotive, in this context we need not differentiate between value and price, in fact consists of the value of the material plus the value of the labor invested in it. The fact that a locomotive, like money, brings about the exchange of objects is only a reason for it to be valued at all. Its actual value does not depend upon this fact. Similarly, the utility of countless other objects is responsible for their having a market price, but the actual level of market prices is determined by many other factors. Utility establishes, at most, a limit beyond which the price cannot rise, but it has no influence upon the actual price level. If this comparison is valid, then the value of money seems to be removed once again from its functions to its material. But the comparison is not valid in one decisive respect. The fact that a locomotive is priced according to the cost of materials and labor results entirely from the fact that anyone may build locomotives, and that consequently the concept itself, without which material and labor would never produce a locomotive, has no influence upon the formation of price. If there were a patent for the construction of locomotives, then its value, in addition to the value of materials and labor, would be reflected in a higher price. As soon as a concept becomes common property, its realizations in practice are no longer scarce, and only scarcity can give functional significance a special effect upon price. In the case of money there is something that corresponds with a patent, namely the governmental right of coinage, which forbids the realization of the concept of money by unauthorized persons. The scarcity of money is based upon this governmental monopoly, to a limited extent when it consists of precious metals and totally when it is paper money or coinage. The monopoly of the government is formulated with characteristic rigor in a Chinese law which punishes the counterfeiter who uses genuine precious metals more severely than one who uses inferior materials. The former enters into a more improper competition with the government and infringes its prerogative more profoundly. If everyone were allowed to mint coins, their value would indeed decline to the value of the material plus labor, and the advantages of monopoly would be eliminated. Thus, ethnologists have observed that the power position of wealthy men and chiefs is easily undermined when everyone can produce money, as in the case of shell money. Conversely, anyone who possesses money shares, to that extent, in the privilege of the state to coin money, just as the buyer of a patented object shares in the patent of the inventor. The privilege of the central power to coin money, which guarantees the functioning of money as money, ensures that these functions contribute an additional value to the value of the material and labor embodied in money, or, where the latter values are lacking altogether, endow money with its value. One of the decrees of Roman law is very characteristic in this respect. From the time that minted coins replaced weighed quantities of copper as money, the Roman law insisted that these coins be accepted at their face value, regardless of their material value. This independence from the metal content required a further provision, namely that only these coins should be accepted as money, while all other coins should be treated as mere commodities.